two.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is the Concern Forum, and the truth always matters. I'm your host, Bob Gumbs, and today I have a guest for the program. Some of you might remember from last year, a gentleman named David Strong, good friend of mine, a noted author, educator, activist, and he's going to have a few interesting things to say. But before that happens, I've been pondering some things on the way down here. And one of the things I've been considering is that, well, I'm a Democrat, and I'm to the left. Very proud of it. I also happen to be a Navy veteran. Proud of that as well. But what is really getting me upset, I think that the time for polite conversation, or put it this way, polite political conversation, I think that's a book that we need to put down for the time being. And I'm not talking about sounding ignorant or being ignorant, but I think it's time that we start, as we used to say back in the 60s and 70s, it's time to start telling it like it is. And I'll tell you what, I read something over the weekend in the Sunday Times, and I see now that the Republican Party is trying to raise the penalties on poll workers so that, especially with older people, elderly people, their intent is to make them afraid to work in the polls. And I think that it's time that all of us, as Americans, put our damn feet down and say enough is enough. Now, quite frankly, this business about hands across the aisle, it's bullshit. And it needs to stop. Because if I were in Congress right now, I would not reach my hand across to shake the hand of any goddamn traitor. And that's the attitude that people need to start taking. Now, these people, these Republicans, they know nobody stole any damn election, right? They know that it was primarily a white racist mob with their Trump flags and their Confederate flags and their Auschwitz summer camp T-shirts, right? They were there because they were mad because their Grand Kleagle did not win re-election. And that's the bottom line. And I despise the Republican Party, just like we have one of those traitors right here in New York State, unfortunately, right upstate, in the Plattsburgh area, Stefanik, who started out as a decent Republican person. Now she decided to get in bed with this no-good traitor to the American flag. And all these people that were so bent out of shape with the brothers in the NFL who were kneeling in prayer before the start of the games, and all they were doing was praying not for unarmed black folks to be shot. And a lot of people out there may say, oh, well, they shouldn't be doing that. That's disrespecting the flag. How the hell, when you're praying in front of something, how is that a sign of disrespect? See, I only get on my knees to God, quite frankly. And I'm not as patient as those brothers in the NFL were, because I would have done something a lot different, to be quite frank about it. But yet those same people Most of them, I'm quite sure, are both Republican. When they were screaming about abusing the flag, what did they have to say when they saw that sea of white folks surrounded the Capitol, broke in, after they set up a gallows that hanged the congressman that they didn't like, after they did that, they break in to our Capitol, the scene of the site of our democracy, the place that represents that statue, not too far from the Capitol. That statue I'm referring to of the Iwo Jima statue, where those brothers, they were my brothers, come to think of it. And they're Native American who risked their lives to put the American flag on top of Mount Suribachi. That's what that statue is all about, that you see when you're a tourist in the DC area. That same flag, those so-called demonstrators used to beat and to kill Capitol Hill cops. And these are the same people that run around telling me, well, you say Black Lives Matter, well, Blue Lives Matter too. Yeah, but then you take the American flag and you use it to beat these cops with. So quite frankly, if you voted Republican, you're a goddamn phony, okay? And I'm telling it to you to your face. Because Trump is a criminal, and if we have a bit of sanity left in this country, he's going to be in jail by the end of next year. I understand that they now have a criminal indictment against this whole filthy organization. Remember, this is a guy, him or no one in his family can have a damn thing to do with any charity in the state of New York. Now, I'm thinking you got to have a lot of hate in your heart to have voted Republican in 2020, because that's all it was about. It wasn't about infrastructure, wasn't about education, wasn't even about health care. Really. As a matter of fact, it couldn't be about any of those things because the Republican Party did not even present a platform. All my time watching politics, from the time I was that high, I've never seen a political party have a convention for the presidential election and they don't present the public with a platform. So therefore, what we have now, we have a Republican Party that is not a Republican Party. It's a damn Nazi organization. It's like Manson. You have people following the leader. And you know, it's a funny thing, because these clowns that talk about Biden, he's leaning too far to the left, then it's, communism and all this. What the hell do you think the communists did? With Stalin. The Republican Party is now a Stalinist party. You follow what the leader says. And what really burns me up, and you have to forgive me because I'm in a very bad mood today, and I don't really give a damn. What really burns me up is the fact that you have grown men and women. Well, I haven't heard, I guess I have heard, that lady Stefanik. You got grown folks, grown-ass people sitting up there. The whole world saw those Trump supporters breaking in our Capitol. And they're going to sit up there and they're going to say, it was just tourists that got out of hand. They were just visitors that maybe were a little carried away, but there was no violence. Oh, really? I wonder, do people act like that when they come by your house? Seriously, if they do, let me know, because I like to come through there and break something my damn self. But that's the disrespect that this party has for the American people. And I hate the stereotype, because Romney didn't join in with that garbage, and about 11 other Republicans didn't join in with that garbage, and that lady from Alaska, the senator from Alaska, she didn't go along with that garbage. But the rest of those folks, as a party, hey, you know what? You suck. You don't deserve to be a party in the American political system. And I understand that this is a two-party country, because I know some Republicans who still have their marbles are talking about having a third party. I don't know, because third parties just don't work in this country. They don't. They just don't. Maybe we're not European enough, which is to say, maybe we're not civilized enough. But those are the facts. But, you know, that's what's really biting my rear end today. I tell you, I can go and I can fight and I can die for this country, but I have to be careful where I decide to live, because I might live in a place that will make it damn near impossible for me to vote. And this whole business about, oh, well, we have to ensure what? Nobody's cheating. When you're talking about millions and millions of people and you talk about one or two clerical errors, that's nobody. That's zero. That's a statistical zero. But you know what's funny? The only people that have been convicted of tampering with the polls and tampering with votes and ballots and what have you, they've all been Republican. So who the hell are you blaming? And another thing, because I happen to be a member, and I donate to them, of Black Lives Matter. Antifa has no membership per se, but I am most sympathetic to what they do. And let me finish off before we get into the main event by saying this. Antifa, what does that mean? That means anti-fascist, which means anti-Nazi. Now, I grew up, and as I came through the ranks, as they say, from the time I was an infant up until the time I went in the military the first time, and even some of the second time, all my mentors were basically men who had fought in World War II, who fought the Nazis, who fought the fascists. We waged a war for almost 5 years to defeat Nazism, fascism, militarism. So my question to all those Republicans out there that are quick to cry about Antifa, my question is, why haven't you donated to Antifa? Why have you not attended their rallies where you think that they're going to be? And they weren't on Capitol Hill on January 6th. What's his name? That little prick, that little wimp of a man, McCarthy, right? When he had his right mind because he was scared, he even told Trump, no, these people are not Antifa. But my question is, why, McCarthy, why weren't you there with Antifa at any of the other demonstrations? How come you haven't donated to Antifa? I want a card-carrying Republican to tell me why they are not with an organization that is against fascism and against anti-Semitism. Explain that to me. Second thing, BLM, Black Lives Matter. You know why that statement came up? Or why they came up with that catchphrase, Black Lives Matter? I haven't heard Black Lives Matter, everybody else sucks. Have you heard that? I haven't heard anyone say that. Not on our side of the fence. But you know why it came up in the first place? Because black lives do matter. And we wouldn't have to say it if you people would not stop shooting unarmed people of color. I mean, come on. You had a military officer, I believe he was a young lieutenant, Army in Virginia on a dark highway. His crime was that he slowly rode until he got to a lighted gas station. The cops made this man roll over, practically, and then sprayed that crap in his face. And then at the gas station, they had to apologize to him because they realized that he had committed no crime. And then, before that, the senior cop threatened the kid, told him, hey, you almost rolled the rail tonight. In other words, you almost got killed. And this guy, he fights for you. If you're in the Ku Klux Klan, this kid is still out there fighting for you, leading men into combat for you. And these two lousy-ass cops could not even respect the man for that. So you watch your mouth when you talk about Black Lives Matter and start using your damn brain. Because we wouldn't have to say it if it wasn't necessary. My God. See, the problem is that law enforcement, they are systematically racist. They have been like that. Now, don't get me wrong. You got some damn good cops out there. But let's face it. You're killing unarmed people. And that's what gets us, that's what gets everyone so angry. And Republicans, conservatives, you're clowns. All right? The whole world sees you as a bunch of stupid clowns, even though you got nuclear weapons. When that cop strangled that black man there in Minneapolis, they were protesting that by the thousands in Australia, New Zealand, Paris, London, Berlin. The whole world has peeped your whole card. You keep following Donald Trump, you will follow him down into flames. Take it from a native New Yorker. Everything this guy touches turns to feces. And if you don't realize that by now, then there's something seriously wrong with you. And these people with this QAnon, I guess that's what, racism on a magical touch? I don't get it. But you know what? They were there tearing up our Capitol. So don't point your fingers at Antifa. Don't point your fingers at Black Lives Matter. Yes, every life matters. And if this country would behave in that fashion, then we wouldn't have to have organizations like Black Lives Matter or Antifa. But unfortunately, that's not the history, even in this modern day and age. And quite frankly, I think the Southern Leadership, Southern Law Council or whatever, that group that they monitor all kinds of hate-mongering organizations, they need to put the Republican Party on the top of their list. And as we talk about hate, David, that's why you're here. Why is there so much hate in this country called America?
To me, that is easy to understand. First of all, full disclosure, I do not belong to any political party. I am not a part of any of the two major groups that call themselves Republican or Democrat. Right. Or any other party. I do not belong. But I understand what's going on because it has been going on since the start of the country, since it was taken over from the indigenous people and the British Crown made the 13 colonies. We could go back further, but I won't do that. The point is this: the mission or the goal of those people that did the ethnic cleansing to get the land from the people they call Indians was one thing: to enrich themselves. And under the crown was at the head of this, and later on the ruling group wanted to get rid of the crown and take over completely. So the mission here is to enrich the people at the top at the expense of all the people. And one of the ways you do it, or let's say the signature move, like a signature song or a signature move, like some people make in dance, is to divide and conquer. You must divide the people up that you're going to exploit. And they have been very successful in that. Now, the chief way of dividing and conquer in this capitalist country has been to divide people up by their, what do we call, phenotype. Phenotype is the way people look. And that's why you have people that have different color skin and other physical characteristics. That's phenotype. Like many of the people in Africa have dark brown skin. Many of the people who live in Northern Europe have very, very light tan skin. So the people that live in Northern Europe and have that like type of skin, we call white people. That's something made up. And the people who have brown skin or dark brown skin, we call black people. And then the Asians, they call them yellow people, and Indians, they even call them redskins and so forth. But no one has white skin like a piece of paper, and people do not have black skin like the color black. They have dark brown skin. The other people have light brown skin, and they are on the white side. So the problem here that Bob is talking about, you have to divide people up to exploit them. So the ruling group here wanted to exploit them as much as they could. So here in this capitalist country, we had chattel slavery. In other words, you own a person like you own a dog or a cat or a pig or a goat or so forth, and that went on for a long time. On the other side, you have the people in the white group, and they were brought over here to work, but the way to control and exploit them is you have to have sides contending against one another. And it's all according to what we call divide and conquer. In addition to that, if some of you have read the latest book, Caste, you understand that certain people are put in a certain caste. Let's start with the top caste. The top caste here is the white caste. The white caste. Now, this is interesting because within that caste in this country, you have people who are in the ruling class. Those are the people at the very top. You have the professional class. You have the middle class, and the lower middle class and poor. As long as they have that phenotype that's white, they're all in the same caste. Now, the caste where you'll find most people are called black people are subordinate caste, and that has professional class and middle class and so forth, and poor and whatnot. So the way you can divide and conquer even though a lot of these people in the white caste are poor, don't have anything, they're still in the same caste with the rulers. So that's a way of dividing and conquering people. So that's the chief means of controlling and enriching oneself. Now, we'll see that clearly because right now we're noticing that the people in the ruling class, that's the very top, the oligarchs and those people at the very top that run the country are getting richer and richer and richer. You've probably even seen in the corporate media how they have made oodles of money. We're talking about billions or trillions of dollars, all told, as other people have gotten poorer. So some people in that 1% of the population are getting richer and richer and richer, and other people, including white people, are getting poorer and poorer. So that's a situation. This situation with race has to do with divide and conquer. And that's how you control people. You break them up any way you can, whether it's male against female, whether it's black against white, whether it's, young against old. Any way you can cut it, that's what you do if you rule. So what we have is, what Bob is talking about, these middle and low class little white people, the attention is on black people and little white people, little black people, and nobody talks about what the ruling class, the top class in that 1%, a fraction of 1% that really controls the country. As far as parties are concerned, my perspective is both of the two viable parties, and we know what they are, Republican and Democrat, essentially are controlled by the people at top. During the last election, many billions of dollars was spent on that election in what they call campaign contributions and advertising and things like that. So to me, campaign contributions is nothing but a legal way of bribery. It's a legal way of bribery, and those people who have the resources to reward those people in the Congress, in the state legislatures, in the city and so forth, they're in control. And not the people who go to work every day and the mass of people who live in the country. So this country, under this form of capitalism, is in favor of the top people at the expense of everything else. And I say this because if it really served the masses of people, the people would have the things they need. They would have the health service.
Well,
they do not have that.
I tell you,
they have other things that they need, and the point is they don't have them because the system is set up to divide and conquer to favor the rich and powerful.
Okay, now I understand your point, and to a large extent, I agree with it. I would challenge our political leaders, and I would challenge the people that vote for them. Now, where you and me disagree, I don't believe that both parties are the same. I believe that the Democratic Party is...
I never said they were the same.
Okay, I got your point. I believe that the problem with the Democratic Party, we're fixable, and we need to get busy on the fixing, quite frankly. But I would tell people in the party and people out in the street, regardless of what party that they belong to, I would ask them a very simple question. Why is it Now, this is before COVID, before the United States screwed up the Middle East and caused the refugee crisis. Before those two things, and that's when I was in Europe, why is it that people in Western Europe, well, number one, you got to keep in mind, in 1945, Western Europe was a garbage can. As a matter of fact, I've seen nicer garbage cans in comparison to what Western Europe was at the end of the last World War. You can still see that because in certain cities in Germany, for example, like you have Nuremberg, and then you have Old Nuremberg. And I guess they keep it up there as a reminder of what the trip that hate took them on. But same thing with Japan. But the funny thing is, we've lost thousands of lives, killed millions of people, but at the end of the war, we invested in Europe and Japan. And like I say, they have a higher quality of life. They have longer life expectancy now than we do. Better educated. You don't have to worry about your kid going to college. It's, as a matter of fact, higher education, although it might be something that most good parents want to see happen for their children, it's really not that much their affair, because the governments, the country itself, if you're in France or England or Germany or Scotland or Ireland, they take care of that. All you have to do is hit the damn books. But they can do that. They also provide decent health care for all their citizens. And why doesn't anyone ask our political leaders, how come we don't have that here? You know how many veterans, by the way, commit suicide? On last count, I think it's about 25 every day, veterans commit suicide. Why do you think that is? You think that happens in Britain? They've been in a few wars since World War II. Same thing with France. They've had their neo-colonial intrusions or wars, however you want to call it. But how come they don't have that kind of problem? They don't have the same problem with alcoholism. The only folks that come close to the United States with suicide is Japan. And that might be kind of like, cultural, if you remember from World War II. But I want somebody to explain to me why we have the highest amount of people incarcerated. How come? Why is that? Video games, right? Well, they got video games, violent video games, violent movies in Germany, Luxembourg, France, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Spain, Portugal. So what is it with us?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking them out there also. Mm-hmm. See, why is that? Why do we seem to have such this problem? Why is it, maybe you can answer this,
yes.
Why is it that if I come across a European who might be bigoted, right? He's bigoted or she's bigoted. But they're not going to say, well, I see a black person in the country, so therefore my social safety net, I have to tear it up. Mm-hmm. You don't find that kind of thing in Europe. Oh, well, we can't have such and such because then you have them blacks and them Hispanics and they won't work. Mm-hmm. Well, if we don't want to work, put a job in the paper, a job announcement in the paper somewhere. Mm-hmm. And see how many black and Hispanic people show up. hundreds. They usually can't fit them around the block. So that's a lie. And besides, we were good enough to build this damn country. In 1860, black slaves counted for the vast majority of material wealth in the United States. Don't take my word for it. Go to the Library of Congress. It's there in the books. So who has been bullshitting who? And another thing you need to keep in, that really upsets me, like, oh, well, we have a black-brown problem. Wait a minute, man. You talking about me like I'm a problem? How does that work? I've been in this country before you. Now, I know on my mom's side, her family goes back in Virginia somewhere around the 1680s, 1690s. Trump's goddamn grandfather just got over here in, 1895? But yet he talks about people of color like we're just some kind of late Johnny-come-lately nuisance. He's the Johnny-come-lately, if you want to go by that. But remember, and you people talk so much about the founders, America is supposed to be a new type of thing. No one here is here by blood. We're here because people sat around the table and made laws. And that's how we're supposed to roll in this country, by law, not by blood. See, when you get into this whole thing about white nationalism, all right, fascism, you're getting into blood. And America is the antipathy of that. Or so I was taught when I went to school. Now, maybe something has changed, okay? Maybe we're going to thank Mr. Trump for basically helping us to forget what we learned, see? But why is that, David?
Well, that's a very interesting point. First of all, when the country was formed with the revolution and the Constitution and so forth, it was formed by, the Constitution was written by the elites, who many of them were slave owners who supported chattel slavery. That's number one. So they wanted to take over the blood rulership from the British monarchy, and they did. So they wrote a constitution that essentially favored them. This wasn't created as some democracy. This was created as a republic, a slave-owning republic that even allowed for slavery in the Constitution. And how can you have democracy and slavery at the same time? Most of the people couldn't vote, and the only ones that could vote were the elite who owned land, stolen land, because all the land was stolen from the indigenous people, the Indians. Stolen. That's how they got the land. And made 13 colonies to start. Yeah. So how can you make a colony out of somebody else's nation? They just stole it, and you're supposed to just assume that it's all right to do that. And from then on, we have another situation. As you were talking, some other things came to my mind, like about veterans. People say they, honor the veterans and all that.
Oh,
well,
God.
During the
we know that's bullshit.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
During the Bush administration, Bush got the laws changed and the regulations changed, and he eliminated 800,000 veterans from certain services in the Veterans Administration, certain health services. And you're looking at one right here. My brother, he didn't serve as much as me, but he was grandfather in, whereas they kicked me out. And they kicked about close to 800,000 others. The point you're making is very interesting about what you said about Western Europe. Over in Western Europe, they have capitalism over there, but it's a bridal capitalism. They're not able to do the things that are done here to attack the service for the people as we do here in this country. Over there, people have their health service. People have their pensions. People have their living conditions. All of these things because they bridle the capitalism, so they look out for the social benefit of the people. Whereas over here, we do not have those same things.
Now, what David just said there, talking about race and the problems that we have had with race in this country, I look at the red states, and I tell you what gets me, one of the things that really gets me fired up, angrily fired up, when I see people neglect themselves, neglect their families, because they have such a virulent hatred for a person or for a group of people. And I'll tell you exactly what I mean. I do a lot of checking up. I'm not too crazy about the internet, to be quite frank about it. I'm not a Luddite, okay? A Luddite, that comes from, I think, the 17 or 1800s in Holland. And these people didn't like a certain type of automation. I believe this was at the dawn of the industrial society. And they would put shoes or their wooden clogs or something to gum up that machinery. And people, for whatever reason, they were called Luddites. But anyway, I'm not a Luddite, okay? I'm a progressive, as a matter of fact. I believe in progress. But I believe that progress, you know, you need to have people with values that are in control of progress. And unfortunately, the internet has basically come to be used. The internet has become weaponized. That's a very large part of the problem. And you go into the red states, and the guy who's running for office, if he's not Republican, and he's running for office, and he says, I want to make sure that every time you go to your faucet in your kitchen and you want a glass of water, that you're going to be able to drink it. I want to make sure that when your kid steps out on the porch and takes a deep breath of air, that it's fresh air, and that it's not going to wind up giving him cancer 20 years down the road. I want to make sure that if I lose, if you lose your job, and you, your wife, your 3 kids are still going to be able to eat decently. Those are the things I want to make sure of. And if your wife is starting to get scared because she took a shower yesterday and she felt something funny, but she's not sure, and she can't afford to go to the doctor to have him check out her breast to see if there's a cancer starting to develop there, I don't want her to come and tell you a year and a half later that she's dying because she has a cancer and they found it too late because she waited so damn long to get to the hospital.
Can we get to the reason for that? I think it's important.
Well, see, here goes the thing. That person is going to be labeled as a leftist, as a commie, as a red, if he's not a Republican. If he is a Republican, they're going to call him a rhino, Republican in name only. In other words, they will do everything they can, no matter what party you're in. If you come off with good ideas like that, they're going to do their best to politically ostracize you to make sure that you're shut out.
Why is that so?
Because, all right, folks, don't get upset. White folks in the South or in the red states, they believe anybody that's trying to do something helpful is a nigger lover and a commie. And anybody that's going to allow them to continue to live the way, the piss poor way that they are living is a good American. I'm sorry.
What you're saying is true, but why is that so?
Because people, they have this belief. They've been trained to think like this. Hold on a second. There was no problem with Roosevelt and the New Deal when he tried to work to accomplish these type of things I just mentioned.
I got something to add to this.
Okay? And the war on poverty, it wasn't a non-white thing. The idea came to Bobby Kennedy's head when he was campaigning with Jack when they was in West Virginia, and they saw the poverty and the filth in West Virginia, which, by the way, it ain't really changed. Why? Okay, you tell me.
Here's the reason why. Here's the main reason why. People here are kept ignorant. They do not understand the system that they're living in. And the ruling class here is very successful because it has this white supremacy racism thing where they can play that, and this can't be played in Norway, in Sweden, in Denmark, in Finland, and Switzerland. So they can get people to be totally blind to what is going on, and all of this is done, all this white supremacy business and the hatred between groups is done in the interest of those who rule. And that's the reason those people don't have the good water, those people don't have the health service, they don't understand the capitalist system that they're living in this country. It's not like Northern Europe and the Scandinavian countries. So they don't know what they're doing because they're kept ignorant by the ruling class that controls the schools, controls the press, written press, radio, television, and all the information people that get, and they don't understand that white supremacy racism is completely stupid because it is against your own interests, and they don't understand that.
So when I'm nailed to the cross by people that will criticize me and people who speak on the things that I speak on, so according to you, I will come about as close to being Christ-like as I can possibly be, because then as they verbally, hopefully just verbally, crucify me, I can say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Mm-hmm. Okay.
If people understood what was going on, things would be a lot different. But as long as you keep people ignorant about what your mission is and how you're enriching yourself, you're winning, you're laughing. And you have all these little white people who are going along with total nonsense because they don't understand the system they live in and why it's set up that way, and the ruling class, the 1% group, is the ones, those are the ones that are winning.
Okay, now I may agree with you, but right now, at this time, at this minute, I have to work within the confines of what we have. Now, right now, we have a Democratic Party, and they are right now, they are coming out with good things for the American people, for their health and education. But the Republicans are constantly on this Trump kick and calling people communists and what have you. So what do we do, David?
Well, if you think that those two groups are going to change and you can reform them, then that's not likely. The point is that people have to wake up to the point where they understand that they have to create something that is designed to benefit them, because the status quo will not get you to change. All that will happen now and then, the ruling classes will throw you a bone. They will throw you a bone to quiet you down. They don't want rebellion, so they will throw a bone, but they're still in charge. So if you think that things are going to change for the benefit of all the people, it's mistaken thought, because they're not going to do it. When they feel they can throw out some bones to keep down rebellion, they will. But the point is, this is not Northern Europe. This is not, they have black people, what they call black people and what they call white people, and they can keep this contention between these different groups and the white supremacy racism going, and they're winning as long as white supremacy racism is in effect. So white people who are benefiting somewhat from that, they don't see that, and that's why they're losing too. So everybody loses except the rich and powerful.
I agree with 90% of what you say, but right now, it's fine for me because, like I say, I'm a Democrat. But aside from that, right now the Democratic Party is all that we have. I'll give you a prime example. If the Democratic Party, if they lose the Congress next year, and if they lose the White House in 24, it's game over. And I want that to sink in to people out there. I don't care, I don't care so much what your political beliefs are, because, see, that's another part of this problem. We are not talking about politics. I get distressed when I hear people talk about, Trump, he's just a politician. No, Trump is not just a politician. Trump is a traitor. And I know from my background, when I was in intelligence, Trump is a traitor. And I'll let it go at that because I don't want to say too much and get myself in trouble. When I went to DIA, I signed a stack, no BS, about that thick, and I had to sign another stack 5 years later when I was going to my next duty station, and that's basically the Secrecy Act. But believe me, Trump is a traitor. Listen. His own sons told you. He was asked, the reporter asked his sons, well, your dad's bought up all these golf courses and what have you, but yet no bank in America would lend him a dirty T-shirt. Where's the money coming from? And his son stood there and said, without even batting an eyelash, oh, well, we get most of our funding we get from Russia. And I think that for any loyal American, I think that should say enough. See, now, I don't give a damn if you think I'm a wacko or not. But I believe, well, number one, I've always known that Trump was a bigot. Like I said, I'm a black native New Yorker, right? That's number one. Number two, if you know about world politics, then you would know that Russia, the head of Russia, Putin, he wants to put the band back together. He wants the Soviet Union back. And he also wants to call the shots, not just in Eastern Europe. He wants to run Eastern Europe, and he wants to dominate and call the shots in Western Europe. And he knows the only way that he can successfully do that is to have a humbled, crippled, divided United States. So he got his friend, Donald Trump, to basically come into American politics and stir up a lot of hate. We have a lot of hate in this country, and we need to stop denying it. You know, like these people like in Tennessee and Texas and Arizona, they don't want black or Hispanic history of the United States taught because they'll say, oh, that just make people of color, the kids, angry. Well, so therefore, that means that you're the same kind of people. You don't want the story of the Holocaust taught. You don't want to hear about how the Germans put Jews in concentration camps and then put them in gas chambers. Well, you know, what is it? Do you want history taught or don't you? And see, that's another part of the problem. All Trump didn't start this mess, by the way. But what he did, he said, okay, Putin, I'm going to use it to my advantage.
Well, you know, I look at this thing this way. If you want to learn something about history, you got to get out of school. Because if you go to the public school, you're not going to learn real history.
Well, most of the public schools in this country are not very good.
No, they
I found that out when I was overseas.
I've taught in public schools. I've worked in many places, including the South, where during the time when schools were fully segregated,
South
the only
is the
books
worst.
we got were the broken up books that the white children used the years before.
Yeah.
And you're not going to learn any history until you start studying on your own. You're not going to learn history because most of it is propaganda. So if you want to learn history, start studying on your own.
Yeah, that's what I did. I had a great time being stationed in D.C. because I had the Library of Congress right down the street, and I was able to, you know, to use those resources. But you know, I grew up. My old man made sure that I knew who I was and where our people originally came from, and that's fine. That's not un-American. You know, we're the country that when we're overseas, and you know, I got my Chinese buddy, my Japanese American buddy, my Chinese American buddy, my Spanish speaking American buddy, my black buddy, you know, and you know, my Irish American buddy and my Italian American buddy, and we're all together. We're all wearing the same uniform, and a German or a French person walks up and says, well, who's the American? We're all American. That's what this country is supposed to be about. You know, it was only those folks that wanted to keep slavery in America that basically the whole immigration thing bothers them. You know, believe me, I've seen enough blood to know we are all the same, okay? And this problem that we have with race, it's number one, it's the sign of a very immature mind. If you can't get beyond the color of my skin, see? And that's one of the problems that we have in this country. We have a lack of maturity. And I will say this, as a former Roman Catholic, I love Pope Francis. That doesn't mean that I agree with everything that he says. But as a man, as a person, as a spiritual figure, I love him. I don't have too much love for most of these American bishops, quite frankly. And aside from the fact that they want to basically control women's bodies, beside all of that, okay, I have a big problem with them because in many of the cities in urban America, most of the law enforcement, a large percentage of these guys are Catholic, right? I haven't heard yet any of these bishops talk about the problem about law enforcement and the black and Hispanic communities. And now the Asian communities where people are being attacked. Why is that? When they feel like talking about a woman's body parts, they have no qualms about that. They want to try and get on President Biden's case, try to stop him from going to certain Catholic churches because he stands behind women's rights. But they don't say a thing when I'm being victimized, when I'm being abused. And I tell you, as I came over the last several years, as I came to see that, and then I remembered when I was a kid going to Catholic school, right? And I remember the 60s, and I remember these priests standing up there with King, with Abernathy, with Snick, getting beaten, getting killed. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of priests got killed in the 60s down south, trying to help me win the right to vote. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, what the hell happened to the church here? Apparently the same kind of thing that happened in the Republican Party. So no, that's why I am no longer, I attend Unitarian services on occasion, but I stopped calling myself a Catholic about 10 years ago. Actually, maybe a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. I started staying away from them when I first came back from overseas. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the last time I went to Mass, was I in France, I think, or England? That was the last time. You know, it's sad when you feel that you are more of an American when you're in a foreign country, and where I felt more of a Catholic when I was in a foreign country. I didn't feel I could be a Black American Roman Catholic, honestly, in the United States of America. And I think that that's very sad. If you all excuse me for a second, I want to check on my time because I don't want us to run over. Camera people, how many minutes do we have?
You're done.
Okay then. Well, our time is up. And as usual, every time I have this guy on my show, it's always the same thing. We get so deep into it. But thank you much for allowing us in your homes. And this is the Concerned Forum, and the truth always matters. Take care.